All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something a little different. We're talking banks, but not in the brick and mortar way. This is about managing banks inside of SAP S/4HANA.
Right, like the software system side of things.
Yeah, exactly. And you actually shared a tutorial about setting up banks and bank accounts in SAP. So today, I guess our mission is to really unpack that. We want to figure out the key steps for setting up and running these accounts in SAP, but really zeroed in on those like really important actions and considerations.
Yeah, it's interesting because even though it seems pretty basic, like managing bank accounts,
Yeah.
it actually gets very structured inside of SAP S/4HANA. So this tutorial gives us a good peek into how that works.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump in then. So first thing the tutorial talks about is setting up the bank itself, and this is done in the SAP Fiori interface
hmm
using the Manage Banks app. Now it seems pretty straightforward. You click Create Bank, and then you got to enter all that general data, basic stuff, before you can save it. And I think for people who are used to the classic SAP interface, that transaction code would be FI12H Bank.
Yeah,
And I guess this is like you're creating that like foundational record of the bank in the system.
exactly. Like you need that master bank record set up before you can actually go in and set up the individual bank accounts under it.
Gotcha. Okay, so you've got your bank company set up. Then it's time to actually create the account, the bank account. And again, this is done in Fiori in the Manage Bank Accounts app. So you
Okay.
just hit New Bank Account, fill in the general data, and then there's this crucial step where you set up what they call the connectivity path.
Yeah, the connectivity path is where you link that bank company that you created to an actual account in your system. So you click Add, you put in an account ID, and then here's the key part. You connect that to what's called a house bank account ID and also to a GL account, general ledger account. That's like the heart of your financial accounting. And when you save this as active, it basically solidifies that connection in the database. Make sure all your financial modules are talking to each other correctly.
So I guess the data flows the way it needs to flow.
Exactly.
Okay, so then the tutorial kind of breezes over linking this to a business partner or BP, which, we don't have a ton of detail here, but it seems like this step is all about connecting that bank account with a specific entity you do business with. So why would that be the logical next step after setting up the account and the connectivity?
Well, even without all the specifics from the source,
Yeah.
linking to a business partner ensures that when you're processing payments or doing any other financial transaction, the system knows exactly which vendor or customer, or even if it's for your own internal company code, the system knows exactly who that bank account belongs to.
Yeah.
And that's important so you can track the finances for each specific business entity accurately.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so now let's get to this really practical part that the tutorial covers, especially for people working across, different SAV environments. And that's how to transfer the bank setup information between different clients or mandants. And I guess in SAP speak, a client means a separate environment within the system. So the configurations are client-specific. They don't automatically transfer over.
Right. So how do you replicate the setup across different clients without having to enter all the information again manually?
Yeah, exactly. And SAP has this import and export feature that directly addresses that.
Okay, so to use this, you've got to have MS Office 2010 or later with Excel installed. And you have to enable the Developer tab in Excel, which you can usually find in the Excel options.
Right.
Okay. And this is kind of cool. You can actually export the bank account data in a couple of different ways. Like you can have it as just a raw XML file, which they name bankaccounts.xml. And you can just edit that directly if you're comfortable with XML.
But if you want something a little more user-friendly, you can export it to an XML spreadsheet template, which is saved as XML spreadsheet template. And that lets you view and edit the data in a spreadsheet, which I guess is more familiar for most people.
Definitely.
And then importing it is just as easy. You go back to the Import and Export Bank Accounts app, choose the XML file that you created, specify the import path, and then click Import. And SAP validates the data and shows you the results. And you can even do selective imports by removing certain entries from the template.
Yeah, this import-export feature is super useful for saving time. And it really reduces the risk of errors when you're setting up multiple SAP clients with the same bank information.
Absolutely. No, okay, so just to quickly recap what we covered today, we went through creating a bank and then a bank account in SAP S/4HANA Fiori. And then we looked at how you can export and import that setup data, which is really helpful for replicating configurations across different SAP environments.
Right. And thinking about this whole process, it kind of makes you wonder how this all scales. Like, what are the advantages and disadvantages for really big companies? those that are managing tons of bank accounts and complex financial structures in SAP, especially if they're doing system migrations or consolidating systems. It gets pretty interesting when you think about the long-term management and how it all scales.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.